On Christmas Eve, I had a big epiphany. Came to the sudden realization that Ohio State was not as good as we thought they were. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the University of Miami delightfully beat them on Christmas Eve. I may need the safety team to protect me from the Ohio State fans here, we tend to use the word epiphany to talk about some sort of discovery or some sort of hidden or sudden realization. But the word epiphany in Greek just simply means revelation or appearing. And today, as we celebrate the solemnity of the Epiphany, the church is commemorating the revelation of Jesus to the world, to the Gentiles. That he's not just the king of the Jews, he's the king of the whole world. And that's symbolized in the Magi who come from the east to give homage to the newborn king. And so we see in today's first reading this declaration, this prophetic foresight of this light, this king coming to Israel. Isaiah declares, "Your light has come. The glory of the Lord shines upon you. See, darkness covers the earth and thick clouds cover all the peoples, but upon you the Lord shines. Over you appears his glory." That there's going to be a time in which God will come and shine his light upon you. And what's interesting is that the vocation of Israel is to not just to receive that light, but to be a light to all of the nations. Nations shall walk by your light and kings by your shining radiance. Now, of course, as Christians, we know that this is fulfilled in Jesus, in history. That Jesus, as the light of the world, comes to Israel. He is the light of the whole world. But we also know as Christians that Jesus doesn't just simply do this once in history. He wants to shine his whole light to the whole world in and through his body, the church. That through the church, God wants to reveal, he wants to have his light appear to the entire world. Now, before I continue, let's remember who the church is. Sometimes as Christians, we tend to reduce the church to its leadership, the bishops, the priests, and the deacons. No, we are the church. Every single one of us who has been baptized is the church. You are the church. And God wants to shine through you into the darkness in the world. I don't know about you, but it's very clear that our world is dark. Very clear that the world is covered in darkness. And it's in our politics, it's in our country, in our church, it's in our culture, it's in our world. And sometimes it can be overwhelming to see that much evil and darkness. Is there anyone else that sometimes can be overwhelmed by the darkness that we see, right? And so, what is it that we need to do in response to the darkness that is in our world? In other words, as Christians, as the church, what is our response to the darkness? I can give you a hint. It's not complaining about it. I don't think anyone's going to go to heaven and God's going to say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have complained well about all of those things outside of your control." He's not going to say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have eloquently cursed the darkness on social media. You have talked well about the faults of your neighbor and your gossip sessions with your friends." I'm going to offer 3 simple points that I think that can help us to posture ourselves with the darkness around us. Number 1, put down your phone. Number 2, worship Jesus. Number 3, love locally. Put down your phone, worship Jesus, and love locally. Number 1, put down your phone. I'm actually just talking about all devices in general. One of the reasons why I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed by the darkness is we have so much easy access to it. In a global 24/7 news cycle, we can have instant access to all of the bad things happening all over the world at once. And it can be overwhelming to us at times. Because after all, the news stations and the commentary aren't really sharing a lot of good news. There's a lot of evil things that can happen in the world. In fact, it can be so difficult for us that we can fall into the opposite temptation of being overwhelmed, and we can just grow desensitized to it. Well, evil is just everywhere, and therefore I forget about my role with regard to the evil around us. I personally don't think that our humanity is made to handle this much bad news, to know what's happening in every single country, every single state, all of these things instantly by means of social media and the internet, and even television. I think that we need to be very careful about that. And this reality of having access to all this bad news is worsened by what some people call the phenomena of rage baiting. Rage baiting is essentially someone posting or promoting content online that is intentionally offensive, provocative, and inflammatory in order to get people angry and outraged. This rage baiting is very effective in getting us all riled up and into a frenzy. And one of the saddest things I see as a priest is this happening even within the church, that ordinary Catholics are rage baiting other people, intentionally or not intentionally. This is a very damaging thing. And all of this is made worse by the fact that the devices that we access the news and the commentary on the internet actually themselves are addictive. So we can get locked in this cycle of negativity and darkness, and it's easy for us to become overwhelmed by the darkness. And when we're overwhelmed by the darkness, we forget about our role in the midst of it. We disengage. And so maybe perhaps one of the things we can do is we can ask ourselves, maybe I need to put down my phone more often. Maybe I need to stop watching the news so much. I personally think that unless your job requires you to be on social media and watching TV all the time or watching the news all the time, that it's probably unhealthy for us to do that more than 1 hour a day. Now again, I'm not saying that we can't watch TV or have some sort of entertainment. I'm talking specifically about news and evil, being exposed to the evil all around us. I think sometimes we need to recognize that this can be a difficulty. Actually, this is something that I struggle with. I tend to follow the news all the time, and I have to be very careful because sometimes I get triggered. There are certain people I cannot watch because I get very upset. So maybe what we can do is we can put down the phone. And another thing we might be able to do is to identify the rage baiters that we tend to follow. The people who post online things that the world is falling about everything. Identify those people who seem to try to get you into a frenzy of being upset and outrageous about the latest injustice, about this thing happening. Such people are probably not people we need to be following. Now again, I'm not saying we need to put our heads in the sand. Listen to me, I'm not saying that. We need to know what's going on in the world, but we do not need to follow certain people who don't process that very well, or people who might be trying to get us to be angry in order to manipulate us or to control us. So the first thing we can do as Christians to respond to the darkness is to make sure we put down our phone, that is to limit our screen time and be very wise about who we follow. Number 2, worship Jesus. We need to remember that Jesus is the light of the world. Jesus is the light of the world. And the closer we get to him, the more that we actually have light in our life. This is really important because it is only in prayer when we worship him and we submit to him all of our fears and our anxieties and the places where we're hopeless. Only when we do that will we actually experience his light and his love and his peace in our life. Because oftentimes we don't bring these things to him. And one of the things that happens when we bring these places of our hearts to him, he actually can inspire us to become a solution to bring light into the areas of darkness around us. But if we're not praying, that doesn't happen. One of the things, that concrete suggestions, is that maybe very specifically, bring your fears and your concerns about the things happening that really are worrying you. Lord, here's what's happening in my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my husband or my kids. Here's what I'm afraid of what's happening in the school or the culture, or here are these things happening over here. Lord, I don't know what to make of this thing happening in Venezuela. Lord, I'm afraid. If we can bring those places of darkness in our own hearts to the Lord, what ends up happening is we open our hearts to his light, to his peace, to his perspective on things, which is much better than a perspective of anxiety and fear and being overcome by the darkness, or even this temptation to judge everyone else who does evil. God wants to change our hearts, but we have to give him the opportunity to do so. And so my encouragement is in your prayers to bring these things to him, allow him to bring light there so that you can be inspired to bring light into the darkness around you. So number 2 is worship Jesus. Number 3, love locally. Love locally. I think one of the things that we need to remember is that the vast majority of the problems and the darkness and the evil in the world is something that's way outside of our control and outside of our responsibility. A lot of the things that we're access to, that's not our responsibility. So in many ways, we can basically remind ourselves, it's just helpful to say, this is what I see happening, this is what I hear about. It's helpful to just sometimes to say, that's not my responsibility. I care about that, but I can't do anything about it. That's not my responsibility. For those of you who follow business leadership, Stephen Covey has this principle, this distinction between the circle of concern and the circle of influence. He says, of course, our circle of concern is fairly large. We want world peace. We want justice in the world. We want people to be happy. We want people to have food and water. We want our church to be healthy. We want our culture and our country to be healthy. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have any influence on those things at large, but we have a lot of influence on what's right in front of us. Our family, our friendships, our relationships, our local community. And so the reality is that I think the devil wants us to be so overwhelmed by all of the injustice in the world, so overwhelmed by all the problems everywhere, that we disengage, and rather than bringing light into the world, we just simply perpetuate the darkness. He wants us to have so much being so overwhelmed, we have no resources, no emotional or spiritual resources to love the people right in front of us. My brothers and sisters, God wants us to love locally, to focus on bringing light to the people in the darkness around us. That's something that we can do, and that's something that is our responsibility to do. Put down your phone, worship Jesus, and love locally. My brothers and sisters, there's a lot of evil in the world, a lot of darkness. Our light has come, and He is depending on us to bring light into those areas of darkness around us. If we who have been enlightened by Christ can recognize that is our role, or as St. Catherine of Siena says, be who God meant you to be and you will set the world ablaze. If that is our responsibility, we who have been enlightened by Christ, and if we don't shine to the world around us, then who will?